With the New York Times in one hand and the Catechism of the Catholic Church in the other, Al Kresta is ready for conversations of consequence.
We do not train to be merciful here. Mercy is for the weak.
Pope Francis has declared the year of mercy.
The message of divine mercy is the heart of the gospel.
You said it very well.
ISIS claims they have more terrorists in America.
What you talking about, Willis?
This is not a time to be afraid, though.
If God be for us, who can be against us?
Nobody! Broadcasting from the studios of Ave Maria Radio in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and taking a closer Catholic look at current events, issues, and ideas. This is Kresta in the Afternoon.
What you do is so critically important. That's a great analysis. You nailed it.
The force is strong in this one.
It's showtime.
Well, let's start the insanity.
You have proved yourself worthy. Will you join me? Who's with me? Let's go!
Good afternoon. I'm Al Kresta. I'm glad to be back with you. We're in Rome, though, not back in the United States yet. We're still just wrapping up the Footsteps of St. Paul pilgrimage, which climaxed here in Rome, again, where St. Paul was martyred. So it's been tremendous, and I'll have a lot more to say on it once I get back to the United States. We've been on this about 10 days. We visited Athens and Thessaloniki, Corinth, Philippi, Ephesus. We followed St. Paul's movements, from city to city. We went to the house of Mary and also the cave where St. John received the revelation. So I visited Istanbul. Fascinating. Went to the Blue Mosque there, one of the most impressive mosques in the world. Well, let me not get off. Let me not get off track and bring it back to why we decided to do this post-mortem today from Rome, rather than wait until we come back into the United States. This was a big election. We all knew it, and I wanted to make sure that we had a chance to talk about it while it was fresh. Donald Trump is now the President-elect of the United States, and I am glad that we are free now of the silly prohibition that the U.S. government forces upon 501c3 organizations. We risk losing tax-exempt status when we speak endorsing candidates. Now, this is, from my personal point of view, I don't find that a threat to Ave Maria Communications. However, we work with 350 Catholic stations all over the United States, and so I can shoot off my mouth, and I can pay the penalties for the ministry that I oversee. But it would be grossly unfair for me to jeopardize the well-being of all these other Catholic apostolates. So, election is over. No big problems now. We can talk as candidly as we can. And I'm going to point out some of the silliness behind this forbidding of candidate endorsement. Look, Catholics read the teaching of the Church, right? Living the Gospel of Life, the USCCB. Put this out back in 98, 99. It makes it clear. That document is great. And it makes it clear that the protection of human life from conception to natural death is absolutely foundational to Catholic social thought. All right? Catholic politicians, it is clear, have an obligation to do all they can to eliminate direct attacks on innocent human life. If there's no right to life that's foundational, then there's no such thing as a right to education or a right to religious liberty. You have to have the right to life first. It's foundational. Catholic politicians are not permitted to hide behind the false consciousness, which unfortunately Tim does. Tim Kaine does it. John Kerry did it. Nancy Pelosi does it. They hide behind a false consciousnness which says, I'm personally opposed to abortion as a Catholic, but as a politician, I support abortion. In Living the Gospel of Life, as I repeat it over and over again, we've read it, the U.S. bishops regard the privately opposed, publicly approving position as hypocritical, giving rise to great scandal, and also placing the spiritual well-being of the politician in jeopardy. So it's non-negotiable. Catholics are morally obligated to support legal and other methods to protect unborn human life. So here's where it gets silly. We have two candidates. One of them has made it expressly clear that she wants to expand the abortion franchise. She supports partial birth abortion. She also wants to make us all pay for abortions. This we know. This is not speculative. She's proud of it. We aren't in doubt at all that Mrs. Clinton made abortion, quote, rights, and also taxpayer funding part of her, what she wanted to champion. All right. No doubt about it. So we all know that. So a caller phones in. Al, I have my sister-in-law. She's a Catholic and says she's going to vote for Hillary Clinton. Is that right? Okay, we're in the campaign season. Well, of course, we can't endorse or disendorse candidates, but the church makes it clear that we should not support candidates who support abortion. Oh, so that means then that you say she can't vote for Hillary Clinton. Well, as I said, we can't endorse or, quote, disendorse a candidate. Right, but Al, it's logically clear that the Catholic Church doesn't permit a Catholic to vote for an abortion supporter. Yes, you're right, that's true. Now, Hillary Clinton is an abortion supporter. Yeah, absolutely. This we know with great certitude. But then you say you can't tell me not to vote for Hillary Clinton? Well, no, it's kind of silly. The federal government will threaten the tax-exempt status of all of our 350 affiliates. So we have to sit here like doofuses and speak the obvious, but not draw the obvious logical conclusion. This is absurd. It is the reason why, and in this case, Mr. Trump has gone much farther than any other political candidate. He has said he wants to eliminate that aspect of the IRS code. So, one of the strong reasons why Mr. Trump had the support of so many evangelical Protestant leaders and many Catholic leaders as well. Now, there were some very good Catholics who felt they couldn't vote for Mr. Trump because there were serious reasons of conscience. Now, they didn't mean they were going to vote for Clinton. They didn't vote for Clinton. The vast majority of pro-life Catholics, though, did have a positive reason to vote for Mr. Trump, and we made this clear. And that was his promise to support pro-life Supreme Court justices. So here's where it gets silly again. All right, Al, of the two candidates, who's the one that has promised to support pro-life Supreme Court justices? Well, that's Mr. Trump. Mrs. Clinton said she will not support or appoint pro-life Supreme Court justices. So if you've got only two picks here, Mr. Trump and Mrs. Clinton, then shouldn't you have to go for the one who supports Supreme Court justices? Well, of course, the logical conclusion is yes, of course. But you're not permitted to say that on the air. Or you're going to jeopardize the tax-exempt status of all your affiliates. This is nonsense. And when push comes to shove, Mrs. Clinton and Mr. Trump were two of the most troubling candidates we'd ever seen. But on the issue of religious liberty and on the issue of abortion, they were miles apart from one another. So when friends asked me what I thought of this campaign, and I said this is what we know with absolute certainty. We know Mrs. Clinton wants to expand the abortion franchise. We know she wants us to pay for it. We know that she's going to follow the same twist in religious liberty that the Obama administration did, using what I believe is a misunderstanding of the Supreme Court. We know that. What do we know about Mr. Trump? We know that he doesn't know very much. He's ignorant. But we know something else. We know that his ignorance has caused him to reach out to friends of ours who have, in fact, been championing life and religious liberty. And we know that he has listened to them because he gave us Supreme Court names for people he was going to put on the Supreme Court. So that's all we knew. That's all I could say with honesty that we know about these candidates. You might think we know a lot more. Good. I felt that those are the things I knew with certainty. And I think that I am glad we have now what I would call a stay of execution. Not in the absolute literal sense, but we knew with Mrs. Clinton that we were going to get an attack on religious liberty, as well as she would be forcing us to taxpayer funding for abortion. So, very good stuff. Now we have to see how this works out. Mr. Trump has loads of problems, but they're different problems than Mrs. Clinton. So, we're going to unpack this today, and of course we'll be returning to it over and over again. But we have a stay of execution here. All right? We know that we are not going down that road that Mrs. Clinton wanted to go, which is the HHS mandate route. We're not going down that road. And that's good news. Also joining me is Deacon Keith Fournier. Deacon Keith and I were both there in New York, I guess it was in June, when Mr. Trump had a number of Christian leaders that he wanted to address. And Deacon Keith is a senior contributor to The Stream, founder and chairman of Common Good Foundation and the Common Good Alliance. He's a human rights lawyer who served as the first and founding executive director of the American Center for Law and Justice. He is currently editor-in-chief of Catholic Online. Keith, good to have you with me.
Well, thank you, Al. It's great to be with you. Now, you're in Rome?
I am in Rome right now, yeah. We've been on this pilgrimage, but I thought I wanted to break into it because this was just so important. And I wanted to just ask you, based on our conversation last June, is this, how do you term this? Is this a stay of execution, or has the Dutch boy put his thumb into the dike to keep it from crashing? I mean, how do you view this Trump victory?
Al, you know, I have to tell you, I've been up most of the evening. As you can imagine, this was an extraordinary historic event. I mean, it really was. And the thing that struck me was how fitting that as we come to the end of the Year of Mercy, which, as you know, concludes on November 20th, the Feast of Christ the King, we've had what I believe is an intervention of mercy. And I mean that. And here's what I mean by that. I think we were on a path toward moral collapse in this culture and implosion. And as you know, because we've known one another for a long time, I have stood at the intersection of faith and culture. That has really been my own sense of call and vocation. I'm not naive. I certainly know that politics will not turn this culture around.
Right.
Only the church can, and only the gospel and conversion can do that. However, at the same time, the political order matters, and we must stay involved, especially to keep the church free, to do what she alone can do.
Can you stay with me a little longer?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't want to let you go because we haven't had enough time, and I want to make sure you lay this out for us because I think it's a very important insight to what we're passing through. My guest, Deacon Keith Fournier, he is going to continue to work with us for a few minutes here talking about a way of seeing this Trump victory. And a good afternoon to you. I'm Al Kresta. With me, Deacon Keith Fournier. He is senior contributor to The Stream, founder and chairman of Common Good Foundation and Common Good Alliance, editor-in-chief of Catholic Online. You were talking about mercy. This is the Year of Mercy. This election took place in the Year of Mercy. The Year of Mercy is coming to a conclusion. Pick it up from there.
Well, now I believe it's our moment to work as the followers of the Lord, and particularly as Catholics. And we will have the time to do it. So I am very encouraged. As you know, I ended up serving on the Catholic Advisory Group to the Trump campaign. I certainly did not start out when this all began as a Trump booster. I had other people in mind. But I also realized the urgency of the time we're living in. The next president, now President-elect Donald Trump, will appoint, I believe, 4 justices to the U.S. Supreme Court. That will shape American history for 30 to 50 years. And we now know that we have in the office a president-elect who has given us 20 names, and they are all solid. They respect the Constitution, and they're pro-life. Now, your listeners might say, well, what does that matter? It matters. I'm an attorney, 36 years. I've been to the Supreme Court as co-counsel. The cases that they are about to hear are urgent. Look, we've dealt with growing hostility toward the church. All we have to do is look at the Little Sisters of the Poor and Priests for Life and the HHS mandate and the like. We've seen the Supreme Court actually take upon themselves the redefinition of marriage, which they have no authority to do that, no legal precedent, nothing. We're still dealing with the aftermath of the horrific Roe and Doe decisions. So these justices matter. In addition, this candidate, now President-elect, has pledged to uphold the Hyde Amendment and to codify it. What does that mean?
Right.
That means the Hyde Amendment, Henry Hyde, a great Catholic leader. The Hyde Amendment has saved thousands of children, and it has prevented our tax dollars, you and me and all those listening in the United States, our tax dollars from being used to take innocent human life. Hillary Clinton was quite clear. She wanted to repeal it. President Trump has pledged to codify it. He's behind the First Amendment Defense Act, which will secure the right of Christians in the church and religious institutions and people of faith to share the truth in the public square. I also think he's going to appoint, and he's already demonstrated his ability to choose solid people, appoint good advisors. So I ask people to pray for him, to realize that politics is not going to turn the culture around, but I say to thank God that we now have a reprieve, and that's how I see it, a reprieve, to get to work. This is a new missionary age, and we are called, as the church, to be the leaven and the light and the salt, and to do the work that must be done to rebuild the moral foundations of freedom. And that is our task now, and I'm greatly relieved. I have to tell you, I watched this thing last night, and, I mean, I don't want to go overboard, but I thought this is an intervention of mercy. No one expected this. No one. And we've been praying and praying and praying. Even in that advisory group, we've been doing novenas and daily rosaries, and I know there are Catholics and other Christians who have been praying. I think we've seen the mercy of God. So let's just get to work. Let's pray for this President-elect and for Vice President-elect Mike Pence, who, by the way, is a dedicated Christian.
Yes, he is.
Let's pray that the right choices are made for the extremely important cabinet positions. And let's thank the Lord that the church has time now to do what only she can do. Proclaim the gospel, demonstrate the gospel, and help rebuild the foundations of freedom. That's what I think, and I'm really, really encouraged. I have to tell you, you can tell it in my voice. Yep. I'm filled with hope, and I'm ready to get going.
Well, this at the very least buys us time, and I don't think there's any doubt about that. I think everybody who's concerned about these issues of life and family can see that this buys us time, and I'm looking forward to seeing how this plays out. There's lots of curiosity that I have about his executive style and how that ends up working in government, and so we'll be able to talk about those things in the future. But I wanted to touch base with you today because I knew you'd have a perspective on this that would be edifying and build us up. So thanks so much, Keith. We'll talk soon.
Well, thank you, and God bless you and all that you're doing. And remember me at the altar, okay? Thank you so much.
I'll do that. Thank you. Deacon Keith Fournier is the, again, senior contributor to the stream and founder and chairman of the Common Good Foundation and the Common Good Alliance. You know, I've known Keith for a long time. I remember when he was an evangelical who eventually returned to the Catholic Church, similar to myself, and then I watched him become a deacon, and he's done a great job over this. One of the most reliable brothers I have. Again, I always count on calling him in times like this to help think through things. But we've got in front of us. Again, however language you want to use, a reprieve. I don't think this is. I'll be honest with you. I do not think that this represents a major change in America. I think it buys time, and I do think that we are facing with this religious liberty issue. As I've said before, abortion is the morally defining issue of this generation, just like race was last generation. But now, with what President Obama did, we had the danger of not only having to fight on the life side, we had to elevate the religious liberty issue to the top of the list, because without proper religious liberty, we can't even go about the work of living the gospel of life. So one thing is very clear from this election. We've bought time, and we're going to be able to think through how to fight back on this issue of religious liberty. So all this to say is religious freedom was in great jeopardy under the Obama administration and would have been equally in jeopardy under a Clinton administration. That we know. Just like we know she was going to try to make everybody pay for abortion and expand the abortion franchise. Those are things we know. We do know that Mr. Trump, no matter where he ends up 4 or 5 years from now, we know that he promised to appoint pro-life Supreme Court justices, and we know that he promised to expand religious liberty, not shrink it. So those are good things. And I think that if you take a look at the demographics on this, absolutely no doubt evangelical Protestants, white evangelical Protestants, voted 81% in support of Mr. Trump. Catholics voted, and again, I need to get clearer information on this. I do not know if this is, I suspect this is self-identified Catholics, not weekly Mass attending Catholics. But I think I'm going to go with self-identified Catholics voted 52% for, 51 or 52% for Mr. Trump. So again, that's people who are concerned about their faith found in Mr. Trump a way of avoiding the increased secularization that would have followed with a Clinton administration. So let's see where this goes from here. This is a good thing, not a bad thing. We shouldn't make more of it than it is. It's a reprieve. It's a stay of execution. It's an open window. It's an opportunity to go back and, on this religious liberty issue, regain some of the ground that we've lost over the last 8 years. On the life issue, there are ways of using executive power, and you'll see him enact some of these ways in his first few days as president, creating a more pro-life culture. All right. We'll be back in just a moment. We've got more to talk about. I'm Al Kresta.